reports of local blood and guts.
What happened was true. The most bizarre and brutal series of crimes
Operation to shut down several dark websites devoted to child abuse landed a Clarksville man in prison. The Department of Justice says they just sentenced a Minnesota man in connection to Operation Greyskull, as it's called. The DOJ played a part in dismantling 4 different websites that shared images and videos containing child sexual abuse.
I'm Kash Patel, Director of the FBI. I'm excited to announce the results of a global operation to take down 4 of the biggest child sexual abuse sites on the dark web.
In 2020, what would become one of the most significant attacks ever made against online child exploitation networks would be launched. Operation Greyskull. Operation Greyskull, as of July of 2025, has successfully dismantled an entire network of child predators who are creating and distributing millions of files and boasting over 120,000 active members on their sites. 4 major dark web websites dedicated to hosting, trading, and publishing this material have been essentially destroyed and failed to resurface. But in the midst of success in such a major operation, it still begs the ever-yearning question of just how this all comes together. How does so many criminals committing such disgusting crimes get away with it for so long in such online, essentially public spaces, amassing hundreds of terabytes of illicit content? The truth of the matter, there really is no simple answer. Investigations take time, evidence, and human labor. These illicit websites are hosted on the dark web and often require users to either submit their own original content, trade collections, and now there's an upturn in actual money being offered up to be a part of these disgusting communities. The monetization of child exploitation and violence. On July 24th of 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice released a press statement on the success of Operation Greyskull, a direct attack on these pedophile rings on the dark web, leading to the dismantling of 4 websites and the arrest of 19 key figures involved with the production and distribution of child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. And that was just in the U.S. There were also 7 international arrests. Among the arrests in the U.S. was a man from Eagan, Minnesota, named Thomas Peter Katsamps. Katsamps joined a dark website dedicated to child sexual abuse material in 2022. He would then advertise and distribute such content via the site, including material depicting prepubescent children, and eventually worked his way up to a staff position. Among his responsibilities were moderating the site, enforcing its rules for posting child sexual abuse material, and advising users on how to share it, a common theme you may see moving forward. These monsters often have egos, requiring vast amounts of attention. They get off on being validated by other creeps. They want to be feared, idolized, and looked up to, a bastard reflection of what they can never be. The website's leaders advertised and distributed CSAM, promulgated the rules for the website, enforced the rules by banning or scolding users who violated them, held staff meetings, recruited members to serve as staff members, recommended other users for promotion, edited and deleted users' posts, praised individuals for participating and contributing to the website, and also keeping records of all the CSAM material posted by each individual member, and paid for and maintained the website servers, among other things. Essentially responsibilities that you would find any other website moderator or forum staff to actually be doing. And the websites specifically targeted in Operation Greyskull were some of the most egregious on the dark web, and included sections specifically dedicated to infants and toddlers and torturing them. The websites also contained detailed advice on how to avoid detection from law enforcement, and advice on how to groom children online, as well as vulnerable family members, and even the user's own children. Thomas Peter Katsamps was sentenced to 250 months in prison and a lifetime supervised release for his involvement with one of the dark web websites. He was also ordered to pay $23,000 in restitution, likely due to the Amy Vicky Andy Act, which is named after 3 highly circulated victims' exploitation. The act in short forces the offender to pay restitution to any victim who is identified in any illicit media. Many would argue, including myself, that is simply not enough and nowhere near enough prison time for this man. In fact, many would agree with me when I say there are better options for child predators. Also a part of this investigation, 2 men in Grand Rapids, Michigan were also arrested for their involvement with these very same sites. And one was sentenced to a mere 5 years and 10 months in prison. The other, however, Keith David McIntosh of Grand Rapids, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to advertise child exploitation and conspiracy to distribute child exploitation material, was sentenced to 55 years in prison, likely due to his past conviction. Do you want to guess what the crime was? Possession of child exploitation material. All in all, Operation Greyskull led to the arrest of 19 individuals with 18 convictions to date, and that was just in the US alone, across many states: Nevada, Michigan, Washington, Florida, North Carolina, Minnesota, Tennessee, Virginia, Oklahoma, Maryland, Arkansas, and Alabama. The international arrests were in Belgium, the UK, Italy, South America, the Netherlands, Estonia, and Germany. The US convictions nearly all carry orders of restitution for the victims as well, collectively totaling $680,400. One of the most important arrests came early in the investigation, however, the one in Alabama. In a quiet suburban neighborhood in Madison, Alabama, lived William Spearman, a 58-year-old man who had been the lead administrator for one of those 4 websites for years prior to his arrest. He was one of the most important arrests made since Operation Greyskull was launched. Spearman went by the nickname Boss and was labeled by the Justice Department as one of the most significant purveyors of child sex abuse material in the world. Spearman managed numerous other individuals as the lead administrator. He directed them on how to help run the website, recommended other users for promotion, and kept records of child sexual abuse material advertised and distributed over the website. He also presided over staff meetings, praised and scolded users, and counseled users and other managers about their functions and expectations of the website. He ran it like a business, even offering disciplinary write-ups as part of punishments. According to the FBI, devices at his desk contained massive quantities of evidence proving that he was the lead administrator of website A. In addition to that comment, it was also stated that, unsurprisingly, the defendant's devices also contained an enormous collection of images and videos depicting CSAM and violence against children. But somehow it gets worse. As Spearman amassed such a collection of illicit material, he would have to use his website hosting servers to store it all because he couldn't keep up with storing the media on physical drives. With millions of files shared across over 120,000 collective members over these websites, that means it could easily reach into petabytes in terms of data storage. And for scale, a petabyte is 1,000 terabytes, with 1 terabyte being 1,000 gigabytes. Spearman had a lot to lose, and as the FBI investigation went on, they realized that an arrest attempt would likely turn violent. Their search warrant was so important to the Bureau that it was approved by the FBI director himself. When agents breached Spearman's door with tactical explosives, Spearman fought back. He got physical with the agents as he tried to wrestle for one of his guns. 3 of them were nearby, but were just out of reach. He would be arrested and has since been sentenced to life imprisonment. I would like to touch upon something that is repeatedly said in these reports, but I feel is stuck between the lines, and the topic of these websites hosting, quote, abuse material. That term, while accurate to the subject of child exploitation and/or CSAM, isn't explicitly referring to that in this matter. It's referring directly to child gore or child abuse videos, child violence, and death. A common collective hobby among some of the most degenerate individuals online, and a form of gore media that I adamantly believe should be 100% illegal and treated as exploitation material. And while it may seem hypocritical to oppose that and make such statements, but not feel the same about adults dying, one is simply circulated for other reasons, and it is quite clear what I mean by this. These monsters are turned on by the actual pain of children themselves, and often these videos and photos are produced and no arrests are ever made. The sheer amount of child exploitation material that exists is astounding in volume and is a horrific reminder of the depravity in our world's underbelly. However, often overlooked is the use of softcore exploitation media, like sexual assault media involving adults, aka adult hurtcore, or physical child abuse videos, or even children being screamed at until they cry, all of which are 100% legal in the United States. It shouldn't be. I believe a line must be drawn at what is deemed freedom of speech and expression news media, while also keeping the integrity of our freedoms. But I think it's just common sense that this is depraved, and it enables another kind of person, someone who isn't just curious, someone who actually wants to see people hurt, someone who wants to hurt children. And it's this kind of media that is softcore degenerate media of sexual assault, child abuse, and necrophilia even, that circulates wildly. Only recently has zoo sadism even been made illegal in many states in the US. However, it's not an entirely airtight law either. It's also extremely hard to prosecute with what very little evidence is actually online when these perpetrators post the content. A sickening reminder at how vastly dark humans are. It's not our world. It's those around you. Teachers, daycare workers, some of your coworkers, doctors, even family members all post to those websites. And remember, there were guides on how these monsters could avoid law enforcement, even using new devices that they can make themselves with 3D printers and other technology. And again, I can't get over the most horrific fact that they have entire guides dedicated to grooming your own kids.